Creativity, curiosity, outside the box thinking, problem solving, an obsessive passion for your interests, and an openness to risk. It's a list that perfectly describes both an ADHD diagnosis and the qualities of a successful entrepreneur. Now add the stimulation that business building brings and top it off with the unparalleled freedom entrepreneurship has to offer. Once you do, it's easy to see that ADHD brains are practically built for entrepreneurship. And that's why if you have ADHD, you're 300% more likely to start a business than if you don't. It's also why such a disproportionate number of self-made millionaires have ADHD. Still though, entrepreneurship is hard. And anyone who says otherwise is either lying or trying to sell you on a get-rich-quick scheme. And while ADHD gives you many entrepreneurial advantages, it also brings unique challenges. Some of these challenges might even make you question if entrepreneurship is even possible when you're doing it powered by an ADHD brain. But nothing could be further from the truth. It's not about whether you can, it's about learning how to work with your brain rather than against it. It's about harnessing its advantages and managing the challenges. Because once you know how to navigate those big obstacles, you unlock the full potential of an ADHD-powered business. And so one of those obstacles, probably the biggest, is the dopamine trap. And the dopamine trap is a covert progress killer that creates a pile of failed business ideas for ADHD entrepreneurs. So if you've ever had an idea for a business, started working on it, and then abandoned it because you lost interest, or maybe even it burnt you out, then the dopamine trap is probably what's to blame. It's the root of your overwhelm, inconsistency, and stalled progress. But first, know that if you found yourself stuck in that cycle, it literally isn't your fault. It isn't a discipline issue, and you don't need to just try harder. This trap happens because of neurological wiring. Not because you didn't write a to-do list or you didn't get up at 5 a.m. The struggle that you face as an ADHD entrepreneur is that you could honestly read, learn, and implement every business book, guru hack, social media video in the world, and it won't include anything that relates to the dopamine trap. It is an experience that is unique to ADHD entrepreneurs, and 99% of business advice is designed for neurotypical brains. And this is far from ideal because I've spent years supporting ADHD entrepreneurs, and I can say two things with total confidence. One, the dopamine trap is the greatest challenge faced by any ADHD entrepreneur launching a business. And two, that breaking out of it is not only doable, but it sets the stage for unparalleled success. All you need to do is to understand it and then commit to doing what you need to do to be free of it. Break free from the dopamine trap and you set the stage for success in your ADHD owned business. Or don't and remain stuck in an exhausting cycle. New business idea, overwhelm, lost interest, abandoned business idea, start new business idea. It never ends. It's that loop. And so the dopamine trap is a fundamental challenge that's rooted in how ADHD brains function. Dopamine is essentially a survival mechanism. It's released in anticipation of a reward in the form of motivation. So think of it like this. Imagine yourself traveling through the ages, riding through time to a land way back in the Stone Age when cavemen roamed the earth. In order to survive, cavemen needed to hunt. The reward for engaging in the actions of that hunt would be the food they get to eat. So the anticipation of that reward, the food, releases the dopamine, motivation, to hunt and to get that food. This looks different in neurotypical and ADHD brains. Neurotypicals have an importance-based nervous system. So that means motivation is derived from external or intrinsic factors. ADHDers, on the other hand, we have an interest-based nervous system. Tasks that are inherently interesting, novel, urgent, or provide immediate gratification is what creates our motivation. So neurotypical caveman knows it's important to eat. The importance triggers the motivation to go on the hunt and get the food. ADHD caveman probably doesn't hunt until he is absolutely starving. Or perhaps he has just found a new type of sharpening process for his hunting spear, giving novelty. So this is why ADHD entrepreneurs thrive in the early stages of business building. It's the exact same logic. This is the ADHD happy zone. It's stage 1 on the visual I created to explain this called the ADHD entrepreneur's map. So this is the idea to launch phase. Now in this stage, the work is novel and exciting. Your brain is flooded with dopamine. Hyperfocus kicks in, and everything feels effortless. There's barely any emotional dysregulation because it's back-end work with no risk of public judgment. So these things come together, make the ADHD happy zone in stage 1. Then we hit stage 2. The reality of owning a business sets in. This is where knowledge and skill gaps start to emerge. Tasks start to lose their novelty. The hyperfocus wears off. It's replaced by emotional dysregulation and challenges with executive dysfunction. So the dopamine up here in stage 1 rapidly declines, taking your motivation with it. So overwhelmed, your brain then seeks to replace it. So instead of focusing on building systems and processes to overcome it, you chase that dopamine. But here's the problem. Dopamine doesn't pay the bills. And I'm so passionate about this that I made it the title of my book, which is coming soon. So instead of focusing on building systems and processes, you abandon ship. You change course, you start a new idea so that you can cycle back to stage 1. That cycle is the dopamine trap. And if that's you, don't worry, because I'm going to tell you exactly how you can escape it. So breaking free from the dopamine trap doesn't mean you need to inherently change who you are. It just means learning how to work with your ADHD brain and creating systems that keep you focused when that dopamine starts to shift. So the first step is recognizing the patterns. Understand how the dopamine trap manifests in your entrepreneurial journey. Awareness is everything. Without it, you'll stay caught in the cycle of high dopamine excitement followed by low dopamine overwhelm. So start by identifying how the dopamine trap is affecting your journey. It's usually these phases, that high dopamine phase. Brainstorming, planning, and creating. This usually feels thrilling, you're hyper-focused, and you feel an inbuilt sense of constant reward. Then the low dopamine drop. That excitement fades, reality sets in, you start to feel overwhelmed, lost, or stuck. Then the cycle begins. So to escape that discomfort, your brain seeks novelty, pivot into a new idea instead of you staying consistent. And that leads us to our first action step. Reflect on your past projects. At what point did you lose that momentum? What tasks were there that overwhelmed you? How often did you pivot to something new or changing your idea or making adaptations that you probably didn't need to make instead of finishing what you started? This awareness is going to lay the foundation for building systems to keep you consistent and keep you focused even throughout the times that your dopamine fades, when it drops. Then we reverse engineer the overwhelm. So overwhelm is what happens when there's low clarity, not knowing what to do, in combination with high demand, having too much to do, okay? So low clarity equals you don't know what to do when or how to do it, and high demand equals a significant need for your time, your energy, and your attention. Then ADHD characteristics like emotional dysregulation and executive dysfunction amplify that overwhelm. So our goal is to stop it before it starts. And to remove overwhelm is very simple. You just reverse engineer it. So instead of low clarity, you get high clarity, a clear plan of what needs to be done and how to do it. And instead of high demand, we go for low demand, systems that reduce the mental load on your brain. So to do this effectively, we're going to use the domino framework to find the moves that will make the biggest impact and commit to those. Then we're going to use project learning to fast track getting those things done. Then you build systems. So let's talk about the domino framework. So this is the key to leveraging hyperfocus, removing your overwhelm and alignment with your need for novelty. So the first thing to do is to define your big current goal. Because if you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. That only leads to overwhelm, burnout, and stalled progress. So start by getting clear on what you're trying to achieve right now. Is it creating an offer? Is it building your audience? Is it running a launch? What is the one big thing that you are trying to get done in your business? Commit to making that your core focus. Forget about anything else until that is completed. Then we build that with a domino project. So your domino tasks are those that when completed will make the biggest impact on that goal. So we list out those tasks, and those tasks make up your domino project. So you review your list and you narrow your focus further by then mapping out the order that they need to be completed in. Now you're left with only one task. This is high clarity and low demand. You simplify your focus, you eliminate decision fatigue, and you get rid of information overload. Then, once you are clear on what task it is that you're tackling, you implement project learning. So as an entrepreneur, you do have a consistent need to acquire knowledge and skills. And in school, we're taught that to do this, we need to use what I call passive learning. And that's consuming large amounts of information, taking notes and trying to retain it. This is ineffective for ADHD brains. So instead, we're going to build with project learning. Active learning, that is hands-on. So I have another video that goes into this in detail. So I'm just going to give you the overview so that you can get started with it. So the first step of project learning is to learn only the foundations for that task. Research only what you need to make a start on that task, not everything you need to complete that task. Okay, so for example, if you're building a website, your task might be choosing a platform. In your domino project, that's the first task. Research the ones that are best for your needs, then just start setting it up. Then you can tackle the gaps as you go. So the process will reveal to you where your knowledge and skill gaps are. So when you come up against one, when you find a gap, study only what you need to fill that gap to move forward, and then do so, get back into that project, right? So now maybe you're doing your website and you realize that you need to build a button for payments. You don't know how to do this. You only research how to build a button and how to set it up for payments, and you go straight back into your project, okay? You keep moving forward. It's really important that you understand that the goal isn't mastering this, it's just progress. So do this for each task in your domino project. Then, once all those tasks are complete and your domino project is complete, you can begin a new one and start that process again. And this domino project method aligns perfectly with your ADHD brain. And the reason for that is that it reduces overwhelm by narrowing your focus to that one core task. It creates clarity because it makes it easier to start and to maintain the momentum. It's also rewarding because you see immediate progress, so that fuels your interest-based nervous system, and it builds confidence because you're proving to yourself that you can follow through and complete these important projects. Then you build systems. So high demand becomes low demand when processes are systemized. And so the goal here is to systemize tasks that require high executive functioning. You want to remove yourself from those tasks as quickly as possible and as much as possible. And so to do this, you implement tools, platforms, and automation to reduce your workload. Use review, remove, automate, delegate. So make a list of all of the tasks and the moving parts in your business. Start with review and remove. What things in your business are you currently doing that are unnecessary? For example, I used to do an Instagram live once a week, but it was super time heavy and it produced very little results. So I stopped. And this doesn't have to be a permanent decision. It's not like I'm never going to do an Instagram live again. It's about at that time, minimizing the moving parts of my business that weren't having impact. Then we automate. So which tasks on your list in your business are repeated? What can you turn into a template or a checklist? What can be handled by tools, platforms, or automation software? Then you delegate. What could you give over to a freelancer? Admin, accounting, editing, these are great places to start. Doing these things is how you're going to maintain that high clarity and low demand. And then that's going to be a turning point for you as an ADHD entrepreneur, because escaping the dopamine trap is that defining moment where you stop spinning your wheels and you start building a business that will truly work for you. Breaking that cycle of the stopping and the starting and the chasing the fleeting thrill of new ideas, chasing the dopamine, but never reaching that consistent progress that builds success. Recognizing those patterns in the dopamine trap and implementing strategies that work with your ADHD brain, you then turn your creativity and your energy into actual, measurable, and sustainable results. This is the transition from frustration and burnout to clarity and to momentum. So I strongly recommend that you put these things in place if this is something that you've struggled with. And if you want to build a business with strategies and systems that ensure that you won't get stuck in that dopamine trap and instead build a successful and sustainable business, then check out the ADHD Entrepreneur Starter Kit in the description below. Also, there you'll find some free stuff and you can grab some really cool other resources too. I really appreciate you watching, and as always, remember, the world isn't designed for the ADHD mind, but the ADHD mind is designed to change the world.